This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and Builder Mastermind Group.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you, the construction business owner and leader, eliminate chaos and maximize profits. I've got a great interview for you today with Alex Gregg. He is the owner of Gregg Homebuilding Company. And Alex and his team build high-end custom and spec homes in the super hot Nashville, Tennessee market. Alex is also a member of the Builder Mastermind Group, and here's what you're going to learn about in this interview. Some of these surprising benefits to starting a home building business in 2008. That's right. Alex started his business in 2008, and there were some upsides to it, some benefits. You'll also learn about the keys to communicating with customers on multi-million-dollar projects, some of the expectations that Alex and his team set with their clients. We talk about how Alex thinks about failure in a term that he thinks is better than the word failure. Alex will share how being part of the Builder Mastermind Group has re-energized him and some of the benefits he's seen in his business, how using templates helps Alex and his team automate their projects, helps them avoid reinventing the wheel every time, and which specific templates he's been focused on. He talks about the importance of knowing your costs, and then we also discuss a really tough question, how to know, K-N-O-W, when to say no, N-O. When do you say no? Frankly, some people have a speech impediment, and it's really hard for them to say no, even when they know they should say no. But we talk about how to know when to say no. Before we get into that, I have one question for you, a couple of questions for you, and then one resource to share with you. Here are the two questions. Here we are recording this in the middle of October 2021. But regardless of when you're listening to this, think about these two questions. When would you like to have your strategic plan for the next 12 months complete and ready for your team to execute on? When would you like to have your strategic plan ready? If you're listening to this in the fourth quarter of 2021, do you want it done by the end of October? Maybe by the middle of December? Next year? Do you want it done like right now? But when do you want to have a strategic plan in place for the next 12 months? If you're listening to this in the future, maybe it's the middle of the year. But when do you want to have a strategic plan? And then number two, think about this. Imagine you've gone through the strategic planning process. You've done the work. You've gone through this process. Here's the question. What is one outcome that would make that strategic planning effort an absolute home run for you? Would it be something like we have a clear list of priorities to execute on? Or we've identified our biggest profit bleeds and we have plans in place to solve them? Maybe it's everybody on our team understands what lane they're in. Perhaps it's that your team is bought into the plan and they're taking ownership of the plan. But the question is, what is one outcome of the strategic planning process that would make the effort an absolute home run for you? What do you want to get out of it? Well, if you own a construction business and you'd like some help developing that strategic plan, let's talk. If you're up for a free strategy session with me, you can go to constructionleadingedge.com, click the button, and schedule a call with me. Again, if you own a construction business and you'd like some help developing a strategic plan, identifying your biggest profit bleeds, setting your goals, figuring out what obstacles you need to focus on over the next 12 months, and where you want to be 12 months from now, then I would be glad to help you. Go to constructionleadingedge.com, click the button to schedule a free strategy call with me, and we'll jump into it. A couple of resources I want to share with you before we get to the interview with Alex. Let me ask you a question. Are you tired of second guessing yourself on the big decisions you need to make as a business owner? Ever wish you could have somebody else to talk to who has experience owning a construction business and they're not a competitor, just to bounce ideas off? Do any of these four statements sound familiar? Number one, I want to be constantly learning and improving, and if somebody else has figured out a better way, I'd like to know it. Number two, I'd like to be part of something bigger than just myself, to be part of a group that's making a difference in the construction industry. Or number 3, I've been figuring things out on my own for a long time. Am I doing it right? Is there a better way? Or number 4, I don't know what I don't know, and I would sure like to avoid the expensive learning curve. And if you've dealt with some of these things, maybe you've tried a few solutions to try to solve these challenges, like reading business books and then trying to figure out how to apply it to your business. Or maybe joining a Facebook group or two and then wading through all the negativity and BS that's in there. Maybe you've joined a CEO group or a networking group, but they don't understand construction because they don't own construction businesses. And maybe you've even joined a local group of people doing the same type of work, but they're your competitors, and you're not really sure how transparent they're being or how transparent you should be. Imagine being able to make confident decisions about your business. I'm talking about new hires, new systems, new processes, when to fire bad clients, when and how to grow your business. Imagine having the security and support from a group of peers who are doing the same type of work, who are not in your backyard, they're not your competitors, where you could say, here's what I'm having challenges with, how would you work through this? Well, I'd like to tell you about the Builder Mastermind Group, which is helping dozens of construction business owners solve those exact challenges. Here's how it works. When you join the Builder Mastermind Group, you'll be placed in a small group of other construction business owners who are doing similar work with similar sized businesses, and they're not competing with you. Number 2, you'll have monthly calls with your small group where you'll discuss challenges and best practices around a specific topic. Number 3, you'll receive an execution plan to prepare for each month's call and to have a way to figure out your action items so that you can execute on them after the call. And then number 4, you'll also receive a summary of ideas and resources shared from all the small groups. In addition to that, you'll be part of a Slack channel where you can message people in your small group or people in other small groups as well. To get all of the details and see what our Builder Mastermind Group members would tell you about their experience, go to buildermastermindgroup.com. That's buildermastermindgroup.com. I'm hosting a live meetup for builders and remodelers November 11th and 12th in Sarasota, Florida. Join me in a small group of some of the best builders and remodelers, and you can, number 1, see the big picture. You're probably so tangled up with the day-to-day dumpster fires of running a construction company that you can't think strategically. You'll also be able to spend a couple of days sharing ideas and building relationships with people who are doing the exact same thing as you are, running a construction business. You'll also be able to unlock the experience and education of other people who may have already solved the problem you're dealing with. Think about the most painful problem you're dealing with right now. What if you could find a solution that somebody else already has, and it's just locked away in their head? And then get away for a couple of days and come home inspired, maybe even re-energized to get after it and improve your business. If that sounds good, you can get all the details for the live meetup for builders and remodelers over at buildermasterclass.com/live. That is buildermasterclass.com/live. All right, here we go. Enjoy my interview with Alex Gregg. Alex, thanks for taking the time to sit down and be on the podcast. Let's get started with some basics. What's the name of your company? What kind of work do you do, and where are you located?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Todd, for having me. First of all, Alex Gregg with Gregg Homebuilding Company, based out of Franklin, Tennessee. And we build single-family homes and primarily new construction. And I have 5 full-time employees. And then my wife helps with some part-time stuff at the office, as well as social media and websites. So,
and how would you describe the housing market in Franklin right now?
Yeah, so Nashville in general, and Franklin, which is just south. It's obviously the craziest we've ever seen it. I've been in the business since the early 2000s, and it was hopping there in 2005 and 6 and 7, and then obviously 2008 slowed down, and then now just a lot of people moving into Tennessee, a lot of things drawn in here, and a lot of people buying houses.
And Where have you seen any trends on where these folks are coming from? Are they coming from out of state? Are they moving from other parts of the state to be closer to the city? Like what kind of trends are you seeing?
I'd say majority of the new homeowners are from California, Illinois. Seen a lot of people from Oregon and Washington State, and then some New York and New Jersey. So those are primary areas, and then and so not a ton of locals, but still have some looking to build.
Yep. I love Franklin. If for those of you listening, if you haven't been to Franklin, Tennessee, you need to check it out. Great area. Lots of good food. Lots of live music. Not surprisingly, incredible concentration of musical talent in that area. That's for sure. So let's talk about how you got started in the business. Take us back to when you started the business and why.
Yeah, so I started my own company in 2008, and to give you a little bit of background, after I graduated from college, I got into teaching high school and did that for 5 years and coached as well. And then, but I've always had a love for construction. In high school, be sketching houses and physical science class, and I was actually accepted to UT, the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, to go to architecture school, but had the opportunity to go to Belmont, which is in Nashville, to play baseball. And so I ended up doing that. And so I tried out teaching and coaching for 5 years. And then I had that itch to get back out into the construction world. And I started with Pulte Homes, production builder, national builder, and then worked for some local guys, and then got out on my own in 2008. And everybody's like, well, that's a terrible time to start a business. And in hindsight, actually, I think it was not a bad time, because, then I was low overhead working out of my master bedroom desk, and just kept the cost low, and just was able to cherry pick lots and build one or two at a time. And then I've slowly grown over the years to doing probably, 10, 12 houses a year, somewhere in that range. And, we've gone from, say, $400,000 houses now, up to even multi-million-dollar houses. And so just love construction. And, when I got in it in 2008, I just, said, hey, I can go try this out, build a couple of houses and feed the family. And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of challenges, but it's been good.
Yeah, I've interviewed several people who started their business in 2007, 2008, and several people said there were advantages to doing that, because one guy who did that said, like, you have no margin for error. Nobody's going to loan you money. You have to bootstrap it. You really have to have the discipline, develop the good discipline that will help when times are good. What would you say was the number one benefit for you to starting a business in the middle of a recession?
One of the big benefits was I could call up a subcontractor and say, hey, I need you to come out to this job to do this or that, and they'd be there in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a little different these days. It's more like a couple of weeks or a month, but yeah, so it was nice to have those guys. They were hungry and they needed to work. And so you could, keep your costs down, but had a lot of good guys that have been with a long time since then.
And let's talk about the blend of work you're doing. Are you building spec homes, custom homes, or both?
Yeah, both. I would say, generally we're about 50-50 on specs versus customs. And that fluctuates just depending on how the work comes in. And, if we see a good opportunity on a piece of property and can build a house in a good location, we're going to take the risk of building a spec house and like doing those. But also I love the custom, the relationship with customers from the very beginning, and working with them through the entire process and that customer journey. That's something we've really focused on, is trying to make that, not only a good product at the end, but also, a good experience through the process. And building a house is tough. There's a lot of things, decisions that need to be made, people touching the house. I mean, there's, who knows how many subs, are working on any given house. And so mistakes are going to happen, but you just have to take care of those and make sure the customer trust and communication are their two biggest things that most customers are asking for.
Yeah, I think that's an often overlooked truth. Some builders would think, well, I build houses, and it's part of it, but you're also providing an end result, but also providing an experience. What would you say are the keys to communicating with high-end custom home clients?
Yeah, I'd say one is just being responsive in a reasonable amount of time, and not, if they call you, you got to call them back. And if they email, you got to email them back. And so just, you got to follow up. And, they got to know that from the very beginning. And once you break that trust, then it's hard to get back. But once they know that you're going to respond, communicate, and then also being prepared, knowing the job, knowing what's going on with your project, and, knowing where things are, what's been ordered, what needs to be, what needs to happen next, and what are we waiting on, and just being knowledgeable. So that's what I would say that people are looking for.
Yeah. Have you found that it's that there are some expectations you like to set with your customers up front to avoid problems down the road?
Well, I would say one of the biggest expectations is that we operate through our, co-construct, which I think you're familiar with. And obviously, it's just a good platform to keep everything together. So that's one of the major ones. And then that we try to communicate through that at all times. And so things don't fall through the cracks. And then, we set we do tell them up front, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that are going to happen that aren't expected. But we've been there, we've done that, we've handled those, just trust that we can, they got to learn that they can trust that we're going to take care of those problems. And once they see you follow through, then, and they hear from friends that you've done that for them, then that's where you can, really make that experience enjoyable for them.
Yeah. Things have changed a lot in the last year and a half. Lumber prices, the supply chains in bad shape, labor shortage. What are some of the ways you're sharing that information with your prospects and clients nowadays? What are you telling them?
Yeah, well, first of all, that's usually the first thing they ask us, when the first call they make to us, they want to know about that, because everybody has heard about the problems, and everybody's experiencing that at the grocery store or Home Depot or just in everyday life. So they definitely understand that it's happening, in the construction industry. And so, we just tell them that that's even more important now to plan ahead and to figure out what you're going to be building. And that's where I think we come in, is try to guide them through that process and ask the questions that they don't know to ask, and really figure out what they want to end up in their dream home. What are the things that they've always wanted to have? And so we try to get those for them, but you got to know about it up front. And so, with the supply chain, you just have to get things ordered early. Lead times have gone up. And so the hardest part for a customer, in my opinion, is to visualize, what's going to look like in the end. I have the benefit of being in the industry, built, several homes over the years. And when I see a set of plans, I can kind of envision what that's going to turn out to be in three dimensions. And so we've really started to try to implement some three-dimensional renderings, and so to help our customers be able to see that and start to apply that to the very front end of the project. And so again, plan ahead and really trying to learn what they're wanting, and try to pull that out of them on the front end.
You mentioned that you worked for Pulte Homes. What were some of the things you learned there? Systems, processes, tools, etc., that production home builders that a production home builder like Pulte uses that have been helpful to you in your career?
Yeah, I would say that I had just a huge benefit working for them for, just a short period of time, year and a half or so, 2 years maybe. And, but they had, some trainings that they sent us to, and they had some, information that was just, I learned a ton, and then we also had the volume, projects, where you get to work on a lot of projects, just because they do so many. And so you get the repetition and that process and learn that. So I gained a ton from them. And then, each kind of progression was a little more custom of a builder. And so learning the little details that you can add to a home to make it special.
So let's talk about failure. Everybody who's been in business for a while has experienced what they at least thought was failure at the time. Has there been a failure or apparent failure in your career that set you up for later success?
I wouldn't, failure is a strong word. I don't think there's really ever failures. They're just, chances to get better. And so, in our industry, I think there's just, mistakes happen. And like I said earlier, there's just a lot of hands touching the project and a lot of natural materials that aren't perfect. And so you just have to deal with those, and you're dealing with problems or maybe many failures on a daily basis. And so, the key is to figure out what those are and how do you eliminate those and make sure they don't happen again and again and again. And that's where, getting into just into your process and making sure that's just becomes automatic, where you're eliminating some of those easy problems. What can you control? What can you eliminate? And so just being prepared again is the key to all that.
I can imagine dealing with high-end custom home clients. When something goes wrong, sometimes in my experience, there's a lot of emotion and customers can kind of freak out. How do you respond when something goes wrong or appears to go wrong and you have a client that's kind of going through the roof about at least what they perceive to be a problem? How do you respond to that?
First of all, I think I've learned to exercise patience over the years, and yes, it is a very emotional process for our customers, for clients building a home. It's just the most money they probably ever invested in any single thing, and they want it to be perfect. And so when things don't go right, or things go unexpected, let's say, then that does bring an emotion. I mean, I've had tears before, and sometimes you act as a marriage counselor, during the process of building, but you just have to remain patient and show, your customers that, okay, well, he's calm, he's he can, we're okay. And just give them that it's going to get taken care of. We're going to make the calls we need to make. We're going to get it done, so you just have to, again, follow through and do the right thing.
So when that message comes through, you get that WTF text message or the phone call or probably an email or message through CoConstruct that there's a problem. Do you call them immediately and talk through it with them? Do you wait until you have some information to share? Do you wait until you have a solution? What's your thought process there?
Well, first of all, our goal is to never have those happen, but, and obviously it's not, those are going to come up, but usually, I usually find out from my team what's going on. I have a great team, and I can call them up at any given time and figure out what's going on, what's happened, and they usually are aware of what's going on. So try to figure out all the information, and then, depending on what the problem is, if it's emergency, we'll call them right then and there. But if it's something that can wait, but we're going to pick up the phone the next day and call them and make sure they know we've addressed it or are aware of any problem that's out there. And so just a really case by case basis.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff. Here's one of my favorite questions to ask. What is one thing that you believe to be true about business that some might think is a little unconventional, maybe even crazy?
Yeah, I would say running a small business, owning your business, you learn that you just kind of figuring it out as you go. There was no manual, that I could pick up at the bookstore on how to build custom homes. I mean, I've read a lot of books and a lot of magazines and websites, but there's no, all right, here's how you go start a business in Franklin, Tennessee and build custom homes and go get loans from lenders and write up contracts and put the estimates together and have subcontractor agreements and all those sort of things. And so you just got to figure it out as you go. And I think one thing that learned over this past year, having begun, networking with folks over Zoom calls and co-construct the mastermind group that you're part of and lead. And then I'm also a member of a local, custom builders group. And one thing you learn that, we're all dealing with the same problems and we're all trying to figure it out as we go. And, everybody's circumstances are different. They all have different employees, different personnel, different municipalities that they're building in, different products that they're building. So it's hard to just say, hey, here's how you fix all those problems. But you're all dealing with a lot of the same problems. And I think, even, having been in the education business, school teaching, and having friends in that business, drink coffee every Wednesday morning with a buddy that's in the education, admin level. And it's just dealing with people, you're, working with people, you're always going to have some issues, and you got to learn how to work through those.
So what advice would you give to an aspiring home builder, somebody who's anxious to start their own business? What is one skill that they're probably not thinking about, but they really need to develop in order to be successful?
Yeah, I would say, well, the biggest challenge is overcoming that fear of taking that leap to go do it, and just taking that leap of faith that I can go do this. And you can. I mean, you can absolutely go do it, and you can absolutely go learn. There's just so many resources out there that you can find and learn how to do this. And then it's about finding the right people, the right subcontractors, the right employees on your team. And it's just finding good people who are, who can speak well, communicate well with your customers and your subcontractors. And I think I was talking to my wife, before, a couple of days ago, talking about this podcast. And one thing at some point, we weren't exactly sure when it happened, but when you start thinking ahead a little more, when you have more foresight and can anticipate problems before you happen. So just always be thinking ahead and always trying to improve what you're doing and your process.
Would you say, which is more important? Is it, if somebody had to pick what skills to develop to be a custom home builder, is it more important to understand the building science and the construction side, or is it the soft skills, people, selling, leadership? Which of those would you advise people to focus on?
Well, that's a tough question. That really is, because I think understanding what you're putting together in the field and the technical aspects of building, is super important, because, we are building multi-million-dollar homes, and there's a lot of risk in that. If we build something that's not up to par and you have structural issues, and where you're talking serious money, and so you have to know what you're doing, and starting more, being able to say no to those jobs that are out of your wheelhouse, especially early on, and then just kind of learning your niche and doing that well, and then adding to that as you go. But at the same time, you have to be able to talk to people, and it's all about, communicating. We're really just, we really just process information, the information from our customers of what they want. We have to get that to the people in the field to make sure that's done, when they're using their nail guns and their caulk guns. And so just managing that information and getting it to the right people. There's a lot of it, but in the end, I walked through a finished house a couple of weeks ago, and I just walked through, and it's like, this is why we do it. It's just fun to walk through a finished project, and you're happy and proud to turn it over to your customers, and your team's worked hard on it, and so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So. Yep. Good stuff. I completely agree. It's about the flow of information, and somebody has to be getting the right information to the right people at the right time, at the right level of detail. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't work. These things don't build themselves. Yeah. So that's a good point. As you mentioned, you're a member of the Builder Mastermind Group, and a longtime member at that, maybe even a founding member. Have you been in there since day one? Yeah. So what led you to join the Mastermind Group? In other words, what was the problem that you were trying to solve by joining the mastermind group?
Well, I kind of just stumbled upon it, to be honest. So it was, during when the pandemic, COVID all just started up. I remember sitting at a picnic table out at a project. We're developing 6 estate lots, and we had a picnic table. We had our meeting there because we didn't want to meet inside. And I remember telling our team, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't, but we're gonna give it our best and do our best possible job. And I think I stumbled upon a webinar that was coming up on Wednesday afternoon with maybe Spencer Pageant, maybe you, and I think talking about things like the PPP loan and just safety precautions around the job sites, and just started talking to these you guys and other builders, and it was just connected, and so just loved hearing from other guys, different perspectives, and hearing their challenges and how they dealt with it. And, every meeting you could pull one little tidbit that's going to help you. So then I think the mastermind course, that was like a 6 weeks course, came along, and so joined that and learned a ton, and then that's when I think the mastermind group spawned from there, and I knew I wanted to jump on it immediately just because just learning a ton, and it's really re-energized me, and learn that you can do things differently than you've always done them, and there's better ways than you're doing them now. And so how can you apply that to what you're doing? So I've had a blast, and it's almost like a therapy session, when you get together with other builders who speak the same language, use the same software, and they understand what you're going through, and you understand what they're going through. So yeah, I've enjoyed it immensely. So I appreciate it.
What would you say, what has been the most valuable part for you about being in the mastermind group?
One thing is, I think, action items. There's a lot of times we talk about stuff, and, even, on our team and, in our office, we talk a lot about a lot of things, how we wish they would be different or that, but I think if you want anything to change, you gotta do something about it. And so I think focusing on action items each meeting, and really, and it could be a little action item, and just it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be monumental, but just do things and get things better, and just constantly put that into practice. So
a few months ago, I rolled out this new format using the execution plan, and sort of facilitating the calls around the execution plan. What this is maybe for my own benefit, but what do you think about the execution plan? Has that been helpful? If so, how has it been helpful?
Absolutely, it's been helpful. It's hard because you have to really sit down and think about, and put into words what your problems are, what you're dealing with, and we're all and then really verbalizing what that is. And then once you can do that, then you can develop a plan of how to change it. And then, the 5 why exercise is always great. I remember that was one of the things I learned from a guy in Pulte in Atlanta when I went on a training trip, was find the root of the problem. Phase completion and the root of the problem are his 2 pieces of advice. And so we're dealing with this. Well, why? Well, okay, well, let's go deeper and deeper and deeper until you find, okay, well, what can we fix, to make it not happen again?
Yeah. Good stuff. If somebody called you and said, Alex, why should I join the Builder Mastermind Group? What would you tell them?
I'd say don't hesitate and do it if you can, and make time to be involved and get to the meetings. And even when, we've had breakout groups and it's just me and a builder or two in there, it's great to hear, about other builders and how they're staffed, and, who they're, how they have their personnel, what roles they have, because we're all kind of different, in how we do things. And so again, every time you can learn something from one of these guys.
Yep. Good stuff. I appreciate that. Let's talk about what I like to call the crack the code segment. What I found is guys like yourself have cracked the code on a lot of things, but there are little nuggets and secrets that are locked away in the heads of guys like you who've been doing it for a while. So what's one specific part of your business that's working well for you that you'd like to share about?
I wouldn't say that I've cracked all the codes for sure. Always feel like you've got so much more to learn. And so, as soon as I think you stop feeling that way, you're in trouble. So first of all, I think one of the things that we do well, and one of the things I want to just keep on improving is the use of templates. And so, we want our process to be automatic, that this happens on every project, without fail. We don't have to worry about that. And that your template reflects that, and that and that you're constantly improving that, because we are in a business and industry where things change constantly. Technologies change, different, products all the time. And so you have to continually evaluate that. So yeah, your templates have to be living, they have to always be updated and maintained. And then also, as far as our, in co-construct, there's selection and specifications. And so you have a template for those. And so what products and what language and what scope of work, so we have that all plugged in there, and you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. And so, but you continually improve that. And as time goes on, it gets better and better and better. And so, one thing I was thinking about, was over the years, our spec sheet has just grown and grown and grown, because, it's like on each, every project, well, I wish we would have had this language in there to address that. So next time we'll put it in there. And so the next time we won't be dealing with this problem. And so it's small incremental improvements. And sometimes they're hard to see, the results, because, what we do, the cycles are so long. The project from when it starts to when it ends, can be 2 to 3 years sometimes. And so if you're implementing change, sometimes it takes a while to see that those improvements really show up in your everyday life. But you got to stay after it. You got to constantly improve those templates. And then I thought back to I think back to one of the first pieces of advice that I received from a builder when I decided to get in the construction industry was know your costs. You have to know your costs. And so one thing that Co-Construct has is the cost catalog, and we've had our kind of Excel version of that over the years, but I really think this allows you to do so much more, and keeping that up to date, and especially these days, in this market, in these times with the supply chain issues and costs going up, you have to stay on top of that. And if you don't, that's when you're going to get in trouble down the road. And to stay in business, you have to be profitable and cover all your expenses. And so knowing those costs is so important.
Yeah. Let's go back to templates, which I completely agree with. A lot of the co-construct folks and even some builder trend clients I have seen a lot of benefit to building out their schedule templates for specifically. Do you when you say templates, are you talking about schedule template as well as your specs and selections template?
Absolutely, yes.
And what?
And then even then, you have checklists, for each trade, you have checklists of things that you want to make sure get done, in the field checklist. And so trying to always implement those and making those better.
Yeah.
But yeah, schedule template for sure.
And I think I heard you say automating things. How are you using your schedule templates specifically to automate things?
Well, you're plugging in not just the trim carpenter is supposed to come install doors today. You're putting in your schedule template that we need to order those doors months ahead of time. And so those adding those items into your schedule, even when you should reach out to a customer, maybe just you can use your schedule template for so much, because there's so many things that need to happen in a project. And so if you're doing it every time on every project, well, it needs to be in your schedule template.
Yeah, it's what I love about the schedule template is it's your automatic rememberer. So instead of you having to think, okay, trim carpenter starts, we need to order trim, and then we need to select the trim, and then we need to do a mock-up. Instead of thinking about those things and having to remember it, counting on somebody remembering it, put it in your schedule template, assign it to somebody, give it a date, and it's going to show up in co-construct. It'll show up in somebody's task manager. So it's a to-do, and nobody has to remember what to do.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's huge. So when you're, let's talk about
that piece of that. Can I add one more thought to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing is you also want to set it up. I've got a great team and a great group of guys, and they probably don't need to write everything down and remember it all because they are good. But we want to set it up so that, if we hire somebody on, if we want to grow, then the system is in place and they can just be plugged in. So if you're ever going to grow, I feel like you have to do that.
That's a great point. What I found is for a lot of builders, it's all in their head, or it's in somebody's head. And they get really disappointed and frustrated when somebody comes in and they're not a mind reader. And
I mean, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. So that's a really great point. If you want to grow your team, or just to have, maybe you don't want to grow your team, but at some point, something could happen to one of your key team members. You need to get it out of your head, out of their head, get it into a document. And the schedule template, in my opinion, is the best place to put it. It's one thing to put it in a policy or a procedure document, put it in a spreadsheet, but the ultimate place where it lives and breathes is in the schedule template. Yep.
And then there's another level to that also, and it's just a template. You can't, I talk to my team about this a lot, is that it is just a template though. Each project is different and you have to go in and you have to really put some time and effort into saying, what's different about this project and what do we have to really anticipate? You have, I think Spencer Padgett was talking about the, a post-mortem, evaluation of your project. Well, doing it before the job, and maybe you mentioned that, but doing it before the job, thinking about, all right, what are the major pitfalls that we're going to run into? And then plugging that into that schedule. And then if it's something that needs to be added to the template, you add it to the template. Yeah.
Yep. A pre-mortem before the thing dies. What might kill it? Yeah. Good stuff. So if let's see. So that's a schedule template, which I think it's a great way. It's key to scaling your business. Let's talk about specs and selections. What's your approach to selections? Are your customers, they have just a blank canvas? Can they select anything? Are you fully custom, or are you providing some guidance on some specified materials like plumbing fixtures and light fixtures, or is everything up for a selection by the customer?
The short answer would be pretty much open for whatever they want to do. We do have some limitations. There's jobs that I've turned down because it's just not in our wheelhouse, and I know it's not something that we have the contractors to do where I'm confident in doing that. So you have to evaluate that, but then we do really push. We try to encourage them to say, hey, our everyday job is to find out what products are the best value, what products, what can we spend the least amount of money on but still maintain the quality that we want. And so that's what we do on an everyday basis. And so we built, over the years, we built these products that we want to use in our homes because we know they're great value. And so we really try to sell that on them and constantly trying to improve on, hey, here's the products that we really recommend, and that we think are what you need to put in your house, But at the same time, you got to learn on the front end what they're looking for. And if they're wanting something different, then absolutely we can tackle that as well. But try to streamline it as much as possible. And a lot of the hesitancy, I guess, even early on was that, well, if you're going to be such a custom builder, can you really put a template on that? Can you really standardize that? And that is a challenge, but at the same time, you try to just do as much as you can, and the more that you can get into your system, always think about like insurance carrier, you got a preferred network and out of network, and so what's in our network is going to be, in our system, is going to work much better, and once we start getting out of that network, then it may cost more and it may be a little bit harder to do, but yeah, it's just try to make it as easy as possible for your clients and still give them a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, there's a balancing point there. I think on one end of the spectrum to say, you know what, you pick everything. You tell us everything. You pick your water heater, whether you want PEX, CPVC, copper, MC cable, Romex. That's on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is the production home. Like, this is what you get. And if you don't like it, you should probably go with somebody else. And somewhere in the middle there's some things that I worked with one large builder, and they were dealing with this. They were trying to they are transitioning from semi-custom to more production so they can build 40, 50, 60, 70 homes a year. And their selling point to standardization is, we know these components all work together. We're selling you a system. And if you bring some other system, some other component in, we're not sure how it's going to behave. So this is why we are standardizing some of these things. I want to go back to something you mentioned a couple of times, turning down projects and saying no. Some people have a pretty serious speech impediment. Like when somebody says, hey, can you do this? They're like, no, okay, we'll do it. And they just can't seem to get the word no out, even though they should say no. So how do you know when to say no?
I think it's you got to trust your gut. I know and sometimes that's wrong, but the majority of the times that over the years and early on when you first start in business, I think it's very tough to say no, because you're just wanting to get the next job and the next project, and you'll do anything, but over time, over the years, you've learned that it's not worth it sometimes to do certain projects. It's not because they're bad people or it's a bad situation. It's not a good fit. And so you gotta, and sometimes there's times I've known that gut feeling that I probably shouldn't do it, but I've done it. And at the end, I'm like, I should have trusted my gut there. And so I don't know. It's just a feel, really. But I've been wrong. There's been, I remember one homeowner in particular, I even was warned by another builder, not to be careful, with this particular customer. And so ends up, I talk to him probably several times a year. He calls up and he loves his house, and he's been one of my favorite customers of all time. And so it's just, it's hard. It's, but most of the time it's a feel.
And in those situations when you've said no, is it because of what's the biggest contributing factor? The customer, the house, your workload? In what situations do you most commonly say no?
I think it would be majority of the time would be the scope of work is not a fit. It's doing some things that we're not used to, or or we don't have the right subs to do it. It's not, I'm scared to do it. I feel like I can, if I can give them enough time, I can go figure it out. But if I don't have the right subcontractors and the guys out in the field to accomplish that, it's a losing battle. And so I just, sometimes you learn that you don't need to put that certain subcontractor on that job. And if there are enough of those on a job, then it's not a fit. Sometimes you got to go find somebody else, and then that's okay. But for that one particular job.
Yeah. It's FOMO definitely rears its ugly head when you feel like you should say no, but then what I found is the voice in your head says, yeah, but what if another project doesn't come along? And what if you say no to this and there's never another project? You're really going to feel stupid. But sometimes the work you say no to can be the most profitable projects because it keeps you out of trouble, frees you up to go work on stuff that is in your wheelhouse, that does fit in your system. And I think that's a discipline that you really have to develop. I've made plenty of mistakes chasing bad clients because I didn't want to say no. And I've always regretted it. Yeah. Good stuff. All right.
It's a lot easier in a good market too, right?
Yeah, this is true. It's a lot easier to get the word no out, or I don't think we're right for each other, when you've got when the phone's ringing off the hook with opportunities. But yeah, it does take discipline, even in the good times, especially in the bad times.
Right.
Well, great stuff. Alex, if folks want to follow you on social media, go to your website, connect with you, where are the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say visit our website at gregghomebuilding.com, Gregg homebuilding.com. And then we have links to our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter feeds there, and Pinterest. And I think, Instagram is a great place to see a lot of our work, and as our projects are closing up. So give us a call if you're in the area and want to build a custom home. But thank you a lot, Todd, for having me on here.
My pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to be on here, Alex. And thanks for being a founding member of the Builder Mastermind Group. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day.
I'm hosting a live meetup for builders and remodelers November 11th and 12th in Sarasota, Florida. Join me and a small group of some of the best builders and remodelers. And you can, number one, see the big picture. You're probably so tangled up with the day-to-day dumpster fires of running a construction company that you can't think strategically. You'll also be able to spend a couple of days sharing ideas and building relationships with people who are doing the exact same thing as you are, running a construction business. You'll also be able to unlock the experience and education of other people who may have already solved the problem you're dealing with. Think about the most painful problem you're dealing with right now. What if you could find a solution that somebody else already has, and it's just locked away in their head? And then get away for a couple of days and come home inspired, maybe even re-energized to get after it and improve your business. If that sounds good, you can get all the details for the live meetup for builders and remodelers over at buildermasterclass.com/live. That is buildermasterclass.com/live. There we go. As always, I challenge you to take one thing away from this interview. What are you going to implement? What are you going to take action on? What's something you heard that you want to implement in your business or in your life? And then remember those two questions I asked you about strategic planning. When would you like to have your strategic plan for the next 12 months in place? And then what is one outcome that would make that effort an absolute home run for you? And if you'd like some help from me and you own a construction business, then let's talk. If you're up for a free strategy call with me, you can go to constructionleadingedge.com and schedule your call with me. As always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews. If you could take a moment and leave a review if you've got some value out of this podcast, that helps to spread the word. And as always, thank you so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt from constructionleadingedge.com. I'll see you next time. Let me ask you a question. Are you tired of second guessing yourself on the big decisions you need to make as a business owner? Ever wish you could have somebody else to talk to who has experience owning a construction business and they're not a competitor, just to bounce ideas off? Do any of these four statements sound familiar? Number one, I want to be constantly learning and improving, and if somebody else has figured out a better way, I'd like to know it. Number two, I'd like to be part of something bigger than just myself, to be part of a group that's making a difference in the construction industry. Or number three, I've been figuring things out on my own for a long time. Am I doing it right? Is there a better way? Or number four, I don't know what I don't know, and I would sure like to avoid the expensive learning curve. And if you've dealt with some of these things, maybe you've tried a few solutions to try to solve these challenges, like reading business books and then trying to figure out how to apply it to your business. Or maybe joining a Facebook group or two and then wading through all the negativity and BS that's in there. Maybe you've joined a CEO group or a networking group, but they don't understand construction because they don't own construction businesses. And maybe you've even joined a local group of people doing the same type of work, but they're your competitors, and you're not really sure how transparent they're being or how transparent you should be. Imagine being able to make confident decisions about your business. I'm talking about new hires, new systems, new processes, when to fire bad clients, when and how to grow your business. Imagine having the security and support from a group of peers who are doing the same type of work, who are not in your backyard, they're not your competitors, where you could say, here's what I'm having challenges with. How would you work through this? Well, I'd like to tell you about the Builder Mastermind Group, which is helping dozens of construction business owners solve those exact challenges. Here's how it works. When you join the Builder Mastermind Group, you'll be placed in a small group of other construction business owners who are doing similar work with similar sized businesses, and they're not competing with you. Number two, you'll have monthly calls with your small group where you'll discuss challenges and best practices around a specific topic. Number three, you'll receive an execution plan to prepare for each month's call and to have a way to figure out your action items so that you can execute on them after the call. And then number four, you'll also receive a summary of ideas and resources shared from all the small groups. In addition to that, you'll be part of a Slack channel where you can message people in your small group or people in other small groups as well. To get all of the details and see what our Builder Mastermind Group members would tell you about their experience, go to buildermastermindgroup.com. That's buildermastermindgroup.com.